share the webinar with you after, and we're going to share some of these documents and some other videos as well outside of the webinar. So be sure to stay tuned for that landing page URL. Also, before I start today, I want to mention this as well. Everything that I'm sharing with you applies to your business, whether you're a solo agent, whether you're a team leader, whether you work on a team, whether you're a broker, whether you're a transaction coordinator. I don't care. All of this stuff applies to any business that wants to grow, that wants to improve, that wants to get better. And when I say grow and when I say improve, that doesn't necessarily just mean income, because there are lots of goals that a lot of people have that might be different. I might be okay with the income I'm making, but maybe my plans are to spend less time on my business. If that sounds like you, great, I'm going to share some really awesome tips for you. If you want to grow your income, great, that's fantastic as well. I'm going to be sharing some tips with you as well. So you're not going to hear a lot of this stuff from any real estate coaches. You're not going to hear some of the language that I'm going to use from any of our competitors, other people in the industry, your broker. These are probably going to be mostly new things for you. And they're things that I've learned working for tech startups and technical companies for the last decade and a half. Now, I will say that I got my start in a mortgage company, and I worked around the real estate industry for a long time, and I've still been working around the real estate industry for the last 7 or 8 years, but on the technology side. I can tell you that I've seen some people implement some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you in the real estate industry, and the results are exciting. So, like I said, some of the things that I'm going to be sharing are not necessarily things you've heard in the past from brokers, from team leaders, because tech startups have a different ethos. Tech startups, by their nature, their very purpose is to solve problems through technology. And because it's technology, because we're dealing with code, source code is written to solve a problem one time and then move on to the next problem. And there are lots of different code, lots of different languages that people use in technology, and I like that idea because there are a lot of different ways to solve the same problem, and it's important to keep in mind as I go through the content here that you're going to take what I share, maybe you're going to throw it all out, maybe you're going to hate it, maybe you hate me, but maybe you're going to take what I'm sharing with you and give your own little spin to what I share and apply in your business. And if you do that, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to open a dialogue with anybody that wants to about some of these things. Because the technology ethos, the startup ethos, is about using the best tools to solve a problem one time and move on to the next biggest problem. To solve problems by creating tasks, successfully solving one task at a time. Technology companies are really good at having a purpose and a focus, and the more purpose and focus a technology company has, typically the faster they grow. And that scale and growth is also part of the ethos. When I say scale, scale means to grow something infinitely, to be able to grow beyond the limitations of what one person can actually do in a day. So we want to solve problems in a scalable way. Now, not everything should be scaled, right? Relationships shouldn't necessarily be scaled. There are things that you're going to want to do and implement that don't necessarily, they don't necessarily scale. Like relationship building is a one-on-one proposition usually. But I will say this, there are technology tools that you can use to enable conversations and enable relationships, and that is a part of that tech startup ethos. So yeah, Lisa, we don't want to reinvent the wheel all the time though. That's right, which is why technology companies like to use the best tools. They like to draw from what other people have done really successfully. But you should also be willing to look outside of your own company, outside of your own industry. Look in, read Aesop's Fables. You can find lessons for business in there. You should be able to find lessons and things you can apply into your business from all different places. And that's why I love sharing this content today, because it's about a different industry outside of real estate that can help provide some insights into what you can do to help grow. Now, here's the things that I'm going to share with you. So it's kind of 3 parts. We're talking about mindset and sculpting your personality. And when I say personality, I'm talking both about you and about your company or your team, or about the perception that other people have of you and your team. That's a big part of it. Also, in the middle column, we're going to be sharing a few ideas on how to measure things and how to use data to grow. And then the last category I want to share is about process and about meeting cadences and about accountability. It's all about kind of traditions that will help you grow exponentially into the future. So we're going to talk about mindset, we're going to talk about culture, we're going to talk about gathering feedback from customers, KPIs, which is key performance indicators. We're talking about funnel, which is your sales funnel, but also churn, which is something you might not have ever kind of clued into. And I'll share why that's really important. We're going to talk a lot about using data, using science, using the latest and greatest business methods in your real estate business. So, first thing I want to talk about is carefully sculpting your personality. Now, again, that means your team, your company, your business, how your customers perceive you. It's not necessarily about how funny you are and how gregarious you are, although that's a small part of it as well. And the ethos here from technology companies is that becoming is better than being. That's a quote by Carol Dweck. Becoming is better than being. So rather than focusing on a state of being, I am good at something, I am smart, those are states of being. What you should focus on in business and in life is becoming better. I'm getting smarter all the time. My business is growing. My processes are getting better. And it's a state of mind. It's a mindset. Focus on a mindset is absolutely critical if you want to grow beyond where you are today. The next thing is culture. And again, culture is both if you're working alone or if you're working on a team or within a tight-knit brokerage. You can set your own culture. If you don't focus on culture, other people are going to decide what your culture is like. Your clients are going to dictate your culture to you. You're going to be reacting to things, which is going to become a part of your culture. So you set it or they set it. And when I say they, that can also mean just your default mode is what your culture ends up being. And everybody's default mode is not necessarily the best. Customer feedback. Customers are not necessarily always right, but customers always tell you the truth about how they're feeling. And I want to talk about that in just a minute here. So mindset. Mindset has to be first. We have to have the right mindset about ourselves, about our growth, about our business, or we're always going to struggle. We're going to be fighting our own mindset. Mindset is made up of a lot of different things, but I want to share a story. One of my favorite leaders is John Wooden. He was known as the Wizard of Westwood. John Wooden was the coach of the UCLA basketball team, college basketball team in Los Angeles, California. He won 10 NCAA championships, 7 of them in a row. The record was still the only person that's ever come close to that 7 in a row record is 2 in a row. That's the most any other team has ever done. So 7 in a row. He won 88 consecutive games. That's a record. And he was named the National Coach of the Year 6 times. And he's famous for the socks story. If you're not familiar with the socks story, on the first day of practice, he would show these college-age basketball players how to properly put their socks on so that there was not a single wrinkle, and how to properly tie their shoes so that their shoes were nice and tight, their feet were supported, and that ensured that they didn't get blisters or sore feet, and they could be out on the court longer. And that focus on fundamentals and on the small things and a process is what made him such an amazing leader. And here's one of my favorite quotes from him. He says, "Did I win? Did I lose? Those are the wrong questions. The correct question is, did I make my best effort? That's what matters. The rest of it just gets in the way." That's the right mindset. And remember, becoming is better than being. That's a quote from Carol Dweck in her book, Mindset. And if you have not read that book, I highly recommend checking it out. In her book, Mindset, she talks all about what makes people succeed and what makes people fail. And sometimes mindset is ingrained into us by things other people told us. So I want us to all think about this for just a minute. Close your eyes and think about something that somebody told you. Maybe it was something your mother told you when you were a kid. Maybe it was something your spouse tells you all the time. Maybe it was something one of your mentors told you that's negative about yourself that you carry around with you as a fact. I'm not asking you to disagree with it or to agree with it, but think about something that somebody has told you that you remember all the time, that pops into your head at random times. And while you're thinking about that, I want you to share it in the questions. If you're comfortable sharing it, I want you to share it with me in the questions section there. And I'll share a personal one from me. Really quickly, when I was a kid, I was one of 6 children, and we'd sit around the dinner table, and I had this bad habit of trying to pour the milk or pour the water really quickly when I'm sitting at the table. And my dad called me heedless and reckless. And I'd pour the milk really fast and it would splash all over the place. And he would always say, "Man, you're so reckless and clumsy, you're always spilling things." Well, even into my adult life until very recently, I thought about myself as reckless and clumsy. And when I poured milk at my house, I would pour it really fast and it would spill, and I would just say, "Oh, well, I'm just reckless, I'm just clumsy." Well, I realized that that was a narrative that I didn't even create about myself. It just kind of default got in there because of something my dad said in innocence. By the way, my dad is one of the sweetest people you would ever meet. But he said, you know, in his frustration, he told me I was reckless, and I carried that around with me. And now I tell myself I'm a careful, conscientious person. And now when I pour the milk, I pour it a little bit slowly. It affects my behavior. That's how powerful mindset can be. Doug says somebody told him that he was cocky, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know how you digest that, but sometimes the things that people say about us aren't true. Maybe they say them in anger, but we carry them around with us. Sometimes we tell ourselves things that aren't true. So focus on your mindset, focus on becoming rather than a state of being. A state of being is heedless and reckless. That's not the right way to think about myself. I should think about myself as I can get better. I don't have to be heedless. I can choose to get better. You are bossy. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how that bothers me in such a big way. I've heard my own family members, my extended family, say that about my daughter. And I love how confident she is and how she kind of likes to take control of things. I think we can harness that as she gets older. So I hate it when people turn that into a negative light. Let's see. Yep. Lean in. Okay, I love this. Thank you, Deanne, for sharing this. She said she read Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In. Her quote that was life-changing for me was, "For every girl who has ever been called bossy, you are a leader." Absolutely. We can create a narrative around everything that happens to us, and we absolutely have to if we want to have the best mindset. Linda says she was called bossy when she was growing up too. Yep, we gotta craft our own attitude about everything. So everything that comes in, we have to filter. We have to create our own filter, and we choose what gets through and what doesn't get through. Most importantly, we have to focus on how we can become something better, become smarter, become better at business, become good at lead conversion, become good at following up with our past clients. We can become good at creating processes. You know what one of my pet peeves is about real estate agents? I'm going to share this with a large group of real estate agents right now. My pet peeve is when I hear a real estate agent say, "I'm not tech savvy," or "real estate agents are not tech savvy." I can't tell you how frustrating that is to me, because that's a state of being. Becoming tech savvy is a process. We're all at a different place in the process of becoming more and more tech savvy, but I promise you there are people in every industry that would call themselves not tech savvy, and describing ourselves as a state of being is never a good thing because it damages our mindset about it. My fiance was called intense for not taking optional breaks during the job. He was focused on what he was doing. Exactly. Some people call these things they call us these things or they say these things in passing. They don't necessarily mean it, but we allow it to sneak in and pervert our own mindset about ourselves. Cliff said, "You're not good enough." Yeah, I mean, you are good enough, right? And you're becoming better all the time. That's what we need to focus on. So, next thing I want to talk about quickly, this is the same thread about sculpting our personality. Culture is a priority. Now, I'm breezing through this stuff because I started late. I really apologize, but again, you can get these slides, you can get the recording, and we're going to be sending out more resources after. So I apologize for talking quickly. Just interrupt me if you want me to cover something different or want me to recircle back on something. Culture is a priority. Now, when people think about tech startup culture, a lot of times they think of the beers on tap, the ping pong tables, the foosball. They think about the games and this irreverent, fun environment that technology companies have tried to foster. But really, it's so much more than that. That certainly can be a part of a company's personality, a part of your personality, but it's so much more than that. Culture also includes the values, the beliefs, the underlying assumptions, the attitudes, and the behaviors shared by a group of people, or that you focus on and that you exude yourself. Now, culture is not something stagnant. Culture can become something different as well. But remember what I said, if you don't set culture, somebody else is going to set it for you, or somebody else is going to decide what your culture is. So it's important for us to sculpt our own mindset, sculpt our own culture so that other people can feel it. And it's a very deliberate thing, but it needs to be a priority. And culture is made up of these things: the language you use, the symbols that you use, the decision-making process that you use, or that your team uses, or that your brokerage uses, or that your brand uses, the stories and legends that you use, the atmosphere, your work environment. I mean, this can be what kind of a car you drive, how comfortable you are in it, how clean is it on the inside and the outside. I mean, little things like that. What music plays in your office? Is there natural lighting or not? What does the decor look like? And then, of course, your daily work practices. So your schedule, your pace. Do you feel safe? Are you creating a safe place for other people? And when I say safe, I mean if people are worried that their job is constantly being threatened or constantly being evaluated, they might not feel that they're safe, and they might feel that anything that might come out of their mouth could harm them. The other thing to consider is the daily work practice and your atmosphere can be frenzied. It can be frenetic and stressful, and that affects your culture. So if you're not controlling the environment, the default mode might be hectic, it might be fly by the seat of your pants, and you don't necessarily always want that. And your clients can feel it, by the way. If you have this frenetic, stressful pace where you're just reacting to things that come up all the time, your clients will know it. And a lot of us like to tell ourselves that it's a good thing that our clients see us busy all the time, but I can tell you that it's much better for your clients to see you as being in control than it is for them to see you being crazy, frantic all the time. How does accountability play into daily work practice? Oh, that is a fantastic question. Thanks for asking that, Glenn. Accountability is part of culture in a massive way, and a lot of us don't have a lot of integrity to ourselves. We have integrity to other people, but we let ourselves down all the time. A lot of us will give, we'll set a goal, we will set a deadline, we'll set things that don't necessarily affect anybody else outside of ourselves, and we easily let ourselves down. We might say, I'm going to make X number of prospecting calls, or I'm going to add X number of people to my database every week, and we get to Thursday or Friday and we're falling short of the goal. We might say, well, I kind of worked hard, so I'm just going to call it good. Look, that's okay if that's how you want to be, and you have the freedom to do that. But I believe that it's more important to set a lower goal next time and stay true to it, because that integrity or the lack of integrity to ourselves can start to pervade other things, and it can affect culture. Another thing is to keep in mind is that even though we don't necessarily work, if you're just working by yourself, you don't have a team, or maybe you are the team leader and you don't feel accountable to anybody else, you don't have to report to your buyer agent, or you don't have to report to your assistant how you did on your own goals. I highly recommend finding an accountability buddy. And I'm actually going to talk about that in a little bit. Find somebody else in your office, find another agent that you like, find somebody in another industry that you respect or that you are friends with, and ask them if they will be your accountability buddy. Again, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the future. Alf says, language, what we say to ourselves or tell ourselves, is critical. Absolutely. You can see how this is all tied together, right? What you tell yourself and your language is a part of your culture, and it affects your mindset. All of these things are connected. They all tie together, and they're all important. I don't think a lot of us give as much credit to culture as we should. Culture is a priority, and it is an urgent priority. And so how do we influence our culture? If we don't feel like we have a culture, we don't really know what it is, or we haven't really thought about it before, here's how you influence culture. Come up with a purpose. Write down, articulate the purpose for why you do what you do. Why are you a team leader? Why are you working towards building a team? Why are you in real estate in the first place? Why did you get into it in the first place, and why are you in it now? Why did you stay in it? Those could be different. There has to be some sort of a purpose, and you need to record your core values and your beliefs. And those core values are not something you invent. They're something that should be uncovered. And I highly recommend trying to say, okay, what do I do? What do I believe? What are my values? And write them down. Instead of aspiring to something, just write down what they already are and be okay with that. But don't write it in stone and don't get it printed on the wall. Write it down on paper and review it once a quarter for about a year. If you still feel like you've got the right values, then write them down on the wall, but don't do it right away. A BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, or a 10-year goal, or a 5-year goal. I think this is so important. You got to have something that you're working toward, especially if you're on a team. What are you wanting to achieve together? It could be that you want to be the most productive team in your area or in your MLS. It might be that you want to earn a certain amount of income. It might be that you want to attain a certain lifestyle for you and your team members, or just if you're working by yourself. All of those things could be big, hairy, audacious goals, but it needs to be a big goal. It needs to be at least 5 or 10 years in the future. Brand promises. What do you promise that you are going to do or be for your customers, for your clients, and for your coworkers or your team, or for your spouse, if that's what you feel like is a part of your business or the purpose of your business? So what would you be disappointed in if somebody told you that you failed to do? What promise would hurt, almost hurt your feelings to break? Think about that and write that down. It affects your culture. And then the last one is a theme. I love, love, love to come up with quarterly themes. I love it. Come up with a theme for the quarter. For example, one was a theme that I had in a previous technology company that I worked for about 1.5 years ago, was when, I guess it was maybe almost 2 years ago now. Anyway, I can't remember. It was 1.5 years ago maybe, but it was when they were sending the probes out to Pluto and Charon. They sent that probe out, and so we named our theme for the quarter was about accelerating out beyond where we had been before, kind of blazing new ground. So we had imagery around the theme, we had stories around the theme, and then we had goals and rewards around the theme. So do that for yourself every quarter. Tell yourself, what's my theme this quarter? Create some imagery, a poster, something, put it on the wall, and make sure it represents something you're trying to achieve in your business. That affects culture. Any questions so far about anything that I talked about before I move on to the next step? By the way, culture is learned. So core values, as an example, are something you should uncover and not necessarily aspire to, but your culture as a whole can be crafted, can be learned, can be taught to other people in the organization through those symbols, through stories, through imagery, through all of those things on that infographic that I showed. And the reason why I chose this person with he's going crazy, is because I think a lot of us kind of go into this default culture mode, especially during the busy seasons. And I wanted us all to think about how we can control this to a more sustainable culture that we want. We have memories of the past, TQM, total quality management, which seemed contrived in the corporate world. Oh, absolutely. And you know, the awesome thing about the business that we're all in is that we get to decide all of these things for ourselves. But if we don't decide them, then there's a default mode. So it's important to decide them, write them down. Choose what you want to do and what you don't want to do. Evaluate it every quarter. We evaluate ours every quarter at our tech company. So the third thing is customer feedback fuels growth. Now, customer feedback is, a lot of times in the real estate industry, we get feedback by asking people for reviews or whether or not they're giving us referrals. And that's kind of the only feedback that we gather. But I want to challenge you to do something a little bit more formal. And if you're already doing something more formal, I want to congratulate you, because I don't think a lot of people do those kinds of things. But customer feedback can be one set of data that you use to help you grow. So I'm going to share two different ways to gather feedback and talk about the pros and cons of them. And then one of the things I'm going to do with you, if you go to the landing page later on today and fill out the form, I'm going to share some examples of how to gather these two forms of feedback with you. But let me ask you a question first. When people fail to achieve their goals, what are the reasons they give? Write it down in the questions. When people fail to achieve their goals, what are the reasons they give? Think about that. Too busy. The goal was too large. Didn't have enough time. I was too busy. Didn't have the resources. It was somebody else's fault. The goals were too high, right? On and on and on. Time, money, technology, economy. This is a big one, economy, right? Now, too much competition. Technology broke. Not enough time. Now, I want to focus on this one, the economy, because obviously our industry is very economically driven. It's market driven. And sure, it's easy to say, you know, it's easy to make an excuse that because the economy was bad, I didn't sell as much this year. And guess what? You're probably right. You're probably right that the economy affects how readily you can achieve your goals. But what I like to think about is, are we better off blaming something else outside of our own control, or are we better blaming ourselves? What are we better, even if we're right about the economy, even if we're right that somebody else did something that affected us, or some outside forces, or look, there's been floods, there's been hurricanes, there's been wildfires for a lot of us. And guess what? It's nearly impossible for us to make a living when those things are going on. But we always have time to recover, and we can always bounce back faster than other people. So it's always in our best interest to blame our own selves when things don't go according to plan. How about these reasons? You ever heard these reasons for not achieving your goals? Homeowners don't understand why it's important to hire a realtor to represent them. What about this one? Homeowners care more about lowering my commission than getting a fair price. What about this one? The other agent won the listing because they listed the property at an unrealistic price to make them happy. The other agent won the listing because they listed the price at an unrealistic, they listed the home at an unrealistic price. I've heard all of these before. Buyers are liars, that's another one. I've heard all of that stuff before. Now, let's just look at the last one here. The other agent won the listing because they listed the property at an unrealistic price. If I said raise your hand if this has ever happened to you, everybody's going to raise their hand, because there are agents that will just tell the homeowners whatever they want to hear in order to get the listing. You're probably right about that. But if you blame yourself for losing a listing, if you say, what could I have done differently? Even though that shady agent listed the house at an unrealistic price, you watched the listing, it was on the market for 6 months before they finally chose another agent to work with, and then the house sold in 30 days, right? We've all seen that happen. It's happened to us. But ask yourself this, the next time you lose a listing, what could I have done differently? Julie, you hit it on the head. Julie said, realtors have a duty to help teach and coach clients. Exactly. By blaming your process, by blaming yourself, you can say, you're right, I might be right that the other agent was shady, but I could have done a better job of educating them. Maybe they didn't believe me when I was trying to educate them. So next time I'm going to try to do it this way or that way. So how do we gather feedback? And why should we gather feedback? We have to give ourselves excuses to work on our own process, to work on our scripts, to work on our mindset, to work on our approach. Just like Julie said, we have to always be looking for those excuses. And by blaming ourselves, we're giving ourselves an excuse to work it even more, to go deeper, to try harder. So ask your customers what they thought about your service and blame your process. Ask them what they thought. Remember, they might not always be right, but that doesn't matter. We have to take everything that they say and remind ourselves that they believe that it's true. Even if I don't believe it's true, they do. So maybe it's not necessarily a process problem or a knowledge problem. Usually it's just a communication problem. So blame your process because your process can improve. And remember, we already established becoming is better than being. So if we focus on the process, on becoming something better, it's easy to blame ourselves. It's easy to blame our process because we're not blaming ourselves for being dumb. We're just blaming ourselves because that's a state of being. We're blaming ourselves for not having the right process, and it reminds us to become something better. So 2 ways to gather feedback, my 2 favorite ways, and this one's my all-time favorite. The other one is a second, close second. My favorite way is NPS. Who knows what NPS stands for? Anybody know what NPS stands for? The other one is CSAT. Let me know if you know what CSAT or NPS stands for. Nobody? I got no responses. Customer satisfaction is, yep, CSAT is customer satisfaction. What's NPS? NPS, trademark term, Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is one question that you ask your customers. It's on a scale of 0 to 10. And it can be slightly complicated to get the responses, so pay attention to how I'm explaining this. But the one question is, how likely is it that you would recommend me to a friend or a colleague? That's it. You ask that one question, how likely is it that you would recommend me to a friend or colleague? And you give them options on 0 to 10. You'll notice the 9s and 10s are considered promoters. 7 and 8s are passives or neutrals. You basically take anybody that said 7 or 8 and you throw out their score. And then 0 through 6 is classified as a detractor. Now, you may not agree that someone that gives you a score of 6 should be called a detractor, but I'm here to say that gives you a 6 or a 7 or even an 8 is actually either a detractor or a neutral. If they say that it's an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, they're not as likely to recommend you as a 9 or a 10. The 9s and 10s are the ones that are going to recommend you to a friend or a colleague. And there's been tons of studies done that this Net Promoter Score is a really, really good indicator. And the companies with the higher Net Promoter Scores actually grow faster than their competition. Now, what you do to come up with your score is you take the percentage of people that responded, you take the percentage of the promoters versus the percentage of the detractors from the overall total. So if you had 100 people that filled out the survey, and you had 10 people that gave you a 9 or a 10, and 10 people that gave you a neutral, your Net Promoter Score is going to be 0. So percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors gives you your NPS. Here are some NPS scores from around the industry. I stripped out the company names. I compiled some data myself. Here are some real estate companies. These are teams. These are brokerages, brands. There's a mixture in here, but they go from -10, meaning more people were detractors in the 0 to 6 range than were promoters in the 9 and 10 range, all the way up to 81. So 81 was awesome. If they had 100 people fill it out, that means they had a really high percentage of them giving them 9s and 10s. 81. So the average here, by the way, is 12.5. So if you're at a 12.5 or higher, you are above average, according to everything that I could find. This was all the data I could find on every single public NPS score, and not all of them are public. But again, you take the percentage of promoters, the 9s and 10s, minus the percentage of detractors, 0 through 6. That gives you your net promoter score. So I highly recommend having a process for requesting that your past clients, current clients, it's one simple question. Give me a scale of 0 to 10. How likely are you to recommend me to a friend or a colleague? Harvard Business Review and others, by the way, there have been multiple studies done on NPS, very comprehensive studies, by the way. Companies ranging from banking to car rental companies show higher income when they improve their net promoter scores. So get a benchmark for yourself, ask 200 past clients what they think, and then try to improve it over time. The other one is CSAT. So CSAT is just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Are you satisfied with the job that I did? Are you satisfied with your home buying or your listing experience with me? And they say yes or no. And then you take the percentage of respondents, and the ones that give you yes scores is your customer satisfaction. So if you asked 100 people and 96% of them said yes, that's a 96% customer satisfaction. By the way, at Realvolve, we shoot for 99% customer satisfaction. At the last technology company that I worked at, we were a little bit more mature than Realvolve is. We've been around for a lot longer. Our customer satisfaction goal was 99.98. And we achieved it most of the time. So customer satisfaction is also a really good gauge. The reason why I like these two scores is because they have data, they have numbers, they have percentages that you can track over time and see how they improve. You're not just relying on feelings, you're relying on data and averages. So next section, section 2. I need to move quickly through section 2 because we're taking up way too much time. I appreciate everybody for sticking with me so far. Measure and study. Claiming that you want to grow without a commitment to measure your process is like cooking a dish without knowing how many people you're going to serve and what ingredients you need. It's like saying, I want to make something good to eat, but not even knowing how many people are going to be there or what ingredients you need or what the quantities are. And I hear people say that all the time. One of the questions we always ask to prospective customers and to our current customers is, what's your goal for the next 12 months? What do you want to, do you have a dollar goal, some sort of a sales goal? Do you have a culture goal for yourself? Do you have a growth goal? And I hear too often people just say, I want to do better than I did. Well, does that mean you're going to be super happy with $1 more than you earned last year? Are you going to be happy with one more transaction than you did last year? It's super important to measure and study your goals and your performance. So 3 things I want to talk about here. First one is choose your KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. KPI, key performance indicators. These are numbers that you should track. Now, here's some examples of some of our marketing KPIs that we track internally. And this is just, hey, here's how many visitors we had to this specific website. We have multiple websites. We have multiple places they can come in from. And we're tracking all of that very scientifically. I don't expect everybody to do it at this level of detail. But what we've done is we have meetings to say which key performance indicators matter the most to our performance. Let's track them and let's try to improve them. So we have spreadsheets for, this is just one sheet, by the way. We have dozens and dozens of them that we track on a regular basis. If it were just me, I would have probably 3 or 4 different spreadsheets that I track for my own sales performance. Because as a real estate agent or a loan officer or anybody that's kind of a sole proprietor, solo lone wolf type of a business, it's important to track both marketing and sales. And so you're going to want to have a couple of sheets for both. We'll talk about some of the things that you're going to want to track. But first, there's two different kinds of KPIs. So essentially, KPI is a fancy way to say numbers, right, or metrics. Two kinds: leading indicators, which help to predict outcomes, and lagging indicators, which measure our performance. So a leading indicator or a predictive indicator is something that will help you predict how you're going to perform in the future. And the lagging indicator, that's how much money we earned, how much commission, what was our conversion rate. They're things that already happened that we can't necessarily change. It's just the result that we got. So leading indicator examples: number of doors we knocked, people we met, how many listing presentations did we do, number of hyperlocal videos we made this month, number of accurate past client records that we're keeping. Those kinds of things predict future success. So they're leading or predictive indicators. Lagging indicators, like I said, how much money we made, the conversion rate, those things that have already happened in the past. The rule of thumb is you want a 2-to-1 ratio. You want two things that predict your success to every one that illustrates the results. So 2 leading to 1 lagging. Here's an example of a real estate agent team's KPIs that I collected. So she sent me this. This was last year by March. So these were her numbers for her team in March. Now tell me, how many leading indicators do you see versus how many trailing indicators do you see here on the screen? How many leading indicators do you see versus how many trailing indicators? I need some feedback. Noreen, this is recorded, so we'll send it out later. Yep, they're all trailing. Glenn nailed it. I see some of you said, 3, 2, some of you gave numbers. It's a trick question. They're all trailing indicators. There's not a single leading indicator here. This is all reporting on performance. This is nothing here predicts future performance. So you could make the argument that the percentage to goal could be a leading indicator of how they're going to do, but really these are all trailing indicators. So the 2-to-1 rule of thumb, 2 leading to every 1 trailing indicator. The reason why that's really important is because you want to focus on your process, right? It's about mindset. We want to craft our mindset, craft our culture, and by focusing on the leading indicators, it helps us focus on what predicts success in the future. Focus on process, focus on filling the pipeline more, focus on the things that actually translate into more dollars later rather than the current state of being, which is how much you sold already. Those lagging indicators, if you're only focusing on that, like this team was last year, if they're only focusing on the performance, that's a mindset towards a state of being, things I already accomplished, and it tends to create this culture of resting on our laurels. So what we want to do is create a culture of focus on process by focusing on the things that predict success in the future. So have 2 to every 1. So if you're measuring, Cleveland, that is the questions feed where you just put that, question there. So that's where I'm getting all this feedback from, is right where you put that. So the 2-to-1 ratio would be, if you are trying to, let's just say you're trying to grow your business, what you would do is say, I want to identify an area that I'm weak that I could get better at. Maybe you want to start working more open houses. Well, a leading indicator would be how many prospects you got at open houses, how many agents you reached out to in your office to volunteer to do their open houses for them, and how many open houses you actually already performed. Those are leading indicators, because the lagging indicator is how much you sold as a result of the open house activities. So always focus on the 2 leading indicators to each 1 lagging indicator you have. And they don't have to be exactly in the same category. You just want to look at your piece of paper or your spreadsheet or wherever you're tracking your numbers and say, if I have 5 things on here I'm tracking in terms of my GCI, how many I closed, my volume, how many buyers to sellers, all that kind of stuff, I need to track also my lead volume, my prospecting volume, how many past clients I reached out to, all of those things that will help predict better success in the future. So let's talk about sales funnel and churn. This is one of my favorite topics as well. Now, a lot of us do a pretty good job of measuring our sales funnel. How many leads are coming in from a certain lead source? What's our percentage of conversions? Which lead sources perform the best? And we kind of have an idea. This is an example of what we do internally to track our sales funnel. And as you can see, it's pretty complicated. We actually have lots of different types of leads. I'm going to zoom in here on a couple of things. So look at the types of leads we have. There's 3 different categories. And we treat them all differently. So we're very, very scientific and careful about how we track all of these different sources. Another thing that we do is we track each touch, and we actually have numbers for everything. So each category of we categorize down where they are in the sales funnel, and we put numbers to it. So we have a number and a name. A new lead, somebody we've already touched, is called an outbounding, where we actually reached out and we called them. If we had a meeting scheduled with them, they go up to a 5. If we closed that and won that client, we call it a 7. And we categorize them that way in our CRM. And then if we didn't get them closed, if we were working with them and they're maybe still deciding and they said circle back, we put them back at the beginning. We call them a 2. So they're not new because we've already had conversations with them, but they're not really moving down through the funnel. So we're tracking all of that stuff really scientifically. This is an example of a real estate agent's funnel. So this is a listing appointment funnel. What do you do if you go, after the presentation, if you got the listing versus you didn't get the listing? Did they actually make a decision already and go with somebody else, or have they just not made a decision yet? If they haven't made a decision yet, what are you going to do? How are you going to follow up with them? This is the bare bones of a Realvolve workflow, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit here. But this sales funnel can be built into Realvolve so that you can track your customers at every phase and make sure that you're staying in touch with them differently depending on which stage of the funnel they're at. Now, I want to propose something to you that you probably haven't done before. Based on research we've done into thousands of agents from around North America mostly, but thousands of agents, you want to get about a 6% penetration into your customer database. So sure, track your sales funnel, track your leads, track how you're doing there, but also track your past clients and track your penetration into your past clients. That means if you have 100 people in your past client database, your average should be at least 6 deals from repeat and referrals out of that database of past clients. 6% customer penetration means 0 churn. Now this is something that companies like ours, tech companies, track religiously. I mean, it's one of our most important factors that we track. How many customers did we lose each month? Now for us it's really easy because we can just say who was signed up on a subscription last month that's not signed up this month, because we have technology that tracks that automatically for us. But for you, there's going to be a little bit of calculation involved. I want to know how many people you have in your database and how many repeat and referral deals did you do out of that database. If it's 6% or higher, you have a 0 churn or a negative churn. So another example of this is 12 repeat and referral deals that came from 100 past clients. That's 12% customer penetration. I call that minus 6% churn. That's good. The lower the number, the better. So negative 6% churn. That's awesome. That means you're doing above average. We see a lot of our clients doing well above average. Some of them up to negative, 20% penetration, which would be a negative negative 13% churn, negative 14% churn. So 12% customer pen is negative 6% churn. We measure that here in this R factor prediction. So we take in Realvolve all of our customers' databases and give you these scores. So your contacts is the number of people you have in your database. R factor is how well you're doing at staying in touch. And the predicted transactions shows you what Realvolve predicts you're going to do. Again, this is based on all of our research, and there's a machine learning algorithm that calculates all of that. So this particular example here, this agent has 178 contacts. Their R factor is 3, meaning they're not doing a great job at staying in touch. By the way, if you want to talk to us about how we actually do this in Realvolve, when you go to the landing page in a few minutes, you'll be able to request a demo. We can explain this in more depth to you. But needless to say, there's 9 predicted transactions, which equals 5% penetration, which is a 1% churn, right? 6 would be the goal, but 6 plus 1 is, well, 5% penetration means that they're 1 below 6, which would be the benchmark. So that means they're at 1% churn. That's not great. You want to be 6 or well above, depending on your market, how long you've been in the industry. People that have been in the industry have higher numbers. They have, you know, like I said, 12, 15, 20% penetration, which is awesome. So I am out of time. If you guys have any questions, I want to show you something. I want to continue on with some of this stuff in a minute. But Glenn, yes, you can actually absolutely build something like that into your workflows, and I'll share some of that with you if you go to the form and fill this out. If you're already a customer, I'm going to skip ahead here. I'm going to finish this content, but I want to show something. So if you're going to stick around, I want to finish this content. There's some really good stuff here at the end about developing a process and refining your process, which is what I really want to talk about. But if you don't have time to stick around, go to this landing page here or shoot us an email at info@realvolve.com and we will send you the link. Go to info@realvolve.com or go to realvolve.com and start a free trial of Realvolve. We'll reach out to you that way. But if you go to that link there or email us, we're going to send you some resources. So I want to send you an example of some meetings that we do internally. It's actually kind of like a role play for a meeting that you're either going to have with yourself every day. It's like a little 15-minute huddle that you do with yourself, you do with your accountability buddy. So it's really cool. So if you fill out the form on that page, over the next couple of days, you're going to get some resources in your inbox. So shoot us an email, info@realvolve.com, or go to that page or start a trial if you don't already have one. I am going to, and John posted the link there in the chat section. So thanks for sticking around. I know a couple of you have to leave, so I'm going to go back to where we were and finish up here. It's only going to take me a few more minutes, but this is the best part of the whole presentation here. I apologize for being late today. So focus on data-driven incremental wins. So what you're looking at is a Ford Model T, right? Ford famously invented the first automobile, and then he invented the assembly line, which was really his truly innovative invention was, and his revolutionary invention was the assembly line. But this Model T Ford, you know, came out in 1908, but in 1913, he installed the first moving assembly line for mass production. Because when it was invented and released in 1908, the Model T, it was simple, it was sturdy, people loved it, but it wasn't inexpensive enough. And so Ford is thinking, okay, how can I make this less expensive? And he focused on the data, and he created this assembly line process. It's all about a process. And then he refined it. And then other people ran with that idea and refined it. Most experts say if Henry Ford hadn't invented the automobile, there were dozens of other people around the world that were working on something similar, right? The idea of an engine wasn't new. The idea of a horseless buggy was not a new concept, but nobody had made it feasible and practical, and Henry Ford happened to be the first one that made it the cheapest and the most practical. But again, the thing that not everybody was working on was this assembly line idea, and that was Ford's revolutionary idea. Focusing on that process is the best way to get gains. It's easy for us to get stuck focused on the romantic idea that there's going to be some sort of a light year leap in technology or an idea that's going to create the next revolution in business. But the reality for most of us is that progress is typically made incrementally, small progress, by incremental gains, by iterating on an idea. So I want to talk about how technology companies, last two lessons here, it's really quick, how you build and iterate. And one of the lessons from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits is the key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. So I want to talk about meeting cadence and building processes. First of all, here's a meeting cadence. This is my schedule. I took this screenshot a couple of weeks ago, but this was my schedule, October 2017. If I go 2-3 weeks in the future, it's going to look almost exactly like this. I have some meetings with people from around the world that work with Realvolve. I have some meetings with people in the office. I have one-on-ones with sales teams. Some of this is a little bit different week to week. Some things happen every other week, but this is one of my typical weeks here. So you can see there's lots of meetings that are already scheduled. Almost all of what you're seeing here is a preset, pre-scheduled meeting that just happens on a regular basis. Here's October 2018. This is next October. It looks exactly the same almost. There's a couple of differences, like I said, because some meetings are only every other week. But as you can see, I prioritize around my goals, and I've scheduled my priorities. I don't prioritize my schedule. These are things that absolutely have to happen, and the whole idea behind a lot of these standing meetings is that I'm working backward from a goal. So you do annual meetings that break out into quarterly meetings and monthly meetings and weekly meetings and daily huddles. I want to talk a little bit about the daily huddle. I would love to talk more about these annual meetings and quarterly meetings because it's really exciting stuff, and the way you do them can make or break your business. But that's for another time. For now, I want to focus on the daily huddle. But suffice it to say, you come up with your annual goals at an annual meeting sometime in December, hopefully, and you say, this is what I want to achieve next year in 2018. And you write those things down. And that's the same time you evaluate your core values, your culture, all those things that I shared earlier about culture. You're going to evaluate those things with yourself or with your team at an annual meeting. And then schedule out once a quarter. That first meeting, that's an annual meeting that happens in December, also serves as your first quarter planning meeting. But then in Q2, Q3, Q4, before the quarter starts, you want to reevaluate your annual goals and then break it out. Say, well, if I want to hit my annual goal, I need to do this quarter. And the same thing with months, same thing with weeks. And then the daily huddle. This is so key. This is execution. Now, with all of that in mind, your annual planning meeting and the quarterly priorities that you've already set in place, you're going to say, okay, if I want to hit these goals this quarter, in this month, what do I need help with today? Do I need something from my broker? Do I need something from a loan officer? What do I need help with today that requires somebody else's attention? And you write all that stuff down. Things you need help with from somebody else. Are you waiting for something from an agent on the other side of the transaction? Write that down or go over that with your team. These are just 3 things you do every single day, and it takes less than 15 minutes before you get started in the morning. Number 2 is share your most important KPIs. So pick 3 to 5 of those key performance indicators. Remember, try to have 2 to 1, 2 predictive or leading indicators to every 1 trailing indicator, and share them. If you're just by yourself, rewrite them on the board, on a whiteboard. Rewrite them somewhere, not in a spreadsheet. Write them outside of your computer where they're front and center when you walk in the room. What are you working on in the next 24 hours? Identify to yourself or your team what you're going to accomplish in the next 24 hours that contributes to those 3 to 5 KPIs. If you find yourself day after day writing down things you're doing that don't actually directly contribute to those predictive and trailing indicators, then you need to reprioritize things. You need to evaluate maybe doing something differently, hiring someone, recruiting somebody, changing your game plan. But those are the 3 things that can be a game changer. What do you need help with? Share your most important KPIs, and what are you working on in the next 24 hours? And use that information, everything we covered, to develop and refine your process. Becoming is all about process. This is one of my favorite toys called a Codapillar. I talk about it all the time because I absolutely love it. It teaches children how to develop a process, how to code, how to develop something. And I bought this for my kids last Christmas. They still play with it today. It's the toy they play with the most. You know, I give them Legos and toys that also play with, but a lot of the other toys, the little cars and stuff, they just throw them away. So I try to give my kids these educational type toys, Legos and educational toys like this Caterpillar. The kids put the Caterpillar together in a certain process, and they do trial and error. So the little segments on the caterpillar, you can see it the best in the middle segment there. The segments represent actions that the caterpillar is going to do. Go left, go right, go straight. And they put it together in the right order, and then the caterpillar goes across the room in the order that they built. And so they see where it went, and then they refine that process over and over again. And this goes back to the 7 habits. It's a focus on what you control versus some people focus on what they can't control. It's your circle of concern versus your circle of influence. Process is what you do, result is what you get. So when people buy or don't buy, when they decide to go with you or your competition, the only way to affect that result is to go back in time and focus on your process. So reevaluate your process and do it differently the next time. Templates are your friend, and this is where Realvolve shines. We have templates in Realvolve for everything. Data entry templates, checklists, emails, text messages, entire campaigns, drip campaigns for lead conversion, task templates, all kinds of templates for everything that you're doing in your business. Almost everything can be boiled down into a data entry template or a checklist or a message of some sort or a task. And all of that stuff can be built into a workflow in Realvolve. That's how we build processes, and that's how we recommend real estate agents build processes. It's phone call scripts. It's when do you send a document? How do you request the document? What's the grammar you're using in the emails? All of these things can be thought through ahead of time and refined over time. With Realvolve workflows, everything is smoother. Your lead conversion processes can start to be a little bit more automatic. Again, every lead you get is more of a conversation opportunity than a conversion opportunity. So we want to enable you to have these conversations by automating some of the busy work. So automate a few text messages so that you can start a real conversation with somebody. Remind you to call at the same time as you sent an email so that you're getting credit for doubling up your follow-up. You can build this into workflow so that right when you get off the phone with somebody, the next follow-up is just right there queued up out of the gate to happen. As you check off the box that you called someone, you're checking send a great speaking next steps email, or send an email that says I just left you a voicemail. But all of this can be shortcutted and automated so that you can be moving on to that relationship building. In Realvolve, you're building a party of people around listings and transactions, and they're connected in the right way. So you can take a home inspector and drag him, drop him onto that party on that transaction. Now that home inspector is associated with the transaction. So now you can do things like set a home inspection date in the system, and by simply changing the date and time, you're going to be scheduling these emails. Now, Realvolve does this for you in the background without you having to lift a finger. So all you did was set the date of the home inspection, and now email reminders are going out a day before that home inspection saying, hey, you know, Mr. Inspector, the buyer and their spouse, you and the seller agent all get that reminder, hey, tomorrow we're going to be at this property, and the property address is already inserted automatically. Now, if, for heaven forbid, which probably never happens to you, that date changes, the inspection date changes, the buyer calls you up and says, hey, sorry to do this, I hate to do this to you, but I had to change, something came up. Now, all you got to do is go change the date in Realvolve, and because you're using a workflow with templates, everything else was rescheduled for you. It moved on your calendar automatically, and all the reminders were rescheduled. You didn't have to lift a finger. That is how I recommend building process in your business through these workflows. You got scripts that you're working on. There are timings that you're working on. You want to elevate your level of customer service. All of that can be done through Realvolve workflows. And we have a community of people on our Facebook page that share ideas all the time. We have a library of workflows and templates, emails and text messages that you can use that other people have shared. Some of them are free, some of them are premium, and some of them are amazing, by the way, to really help you get better. So again, whether you're looking to earn more money in your business or whether you're looking to spend less time on the business, Realvolve workflows are super powerful. Learn from the best tech companies and rely on the best technology to help you get your job done. Go to Realvolve if you don't already have Realvolve. I know a lot of you on the webinar today already have it. You're already customers. I recognize a lot of friendly names there in the question section. But if you don't have it, you need it. Go to realvolve.com, start a free trial, or email us, and we'll get you some more information. So, what did you guys think of the webinar today? Was it helpful? Did you like it? Did you learn anything? Anything you have questions about? Questions about Realvolve? Even if you're already a customer, is there something that you had a question about we can reach out to you and help you with? It's a 14-day free trial. So go to realvolve.com, click on try it now. It's free. You don't need a credit card or anything. Let's see, Julie, vice for a team and run a group independent individual for 20 plus years with no specified structure or accountability. That is a great question, Julie. That's a tough one because what you're wanting to do now is interrupt the culture, right? So a group that has been run independent like that for 20 plus years already has a culture. And so basically what you're asking is, how do I change the culture? How do I change the traditions? And that has to start with a planning meeting of some sort. Whoever has the most authority and the most pull, the most respect, needs to organize a meeting, and everybody that you can get on your side. I don't know, how big is this team, Julie, that you're talking about here? 25, okay. So that's a big team. So what you need to do is you need to get buy-in from as many individuals as you can that are going to get excited and share that excitement with people from, within the rest of the team. And you need to have like a kickoff meeting. Hey, we're going to try some new things to affect the culture. And it needs to be about culture, not, hey, we're going to do things differently, or hey, we're going to start planning differently, or have these other meetings. You can't present it that way. You have to say, look, we're going to have a culture meeting. We want to do some things that will better the culture. If you put it that way, it doesn't sound like work, because culture is something that everybody can get behind, right? I want to make the job more fun. We want to make it more, we want to grow faster. We want to change the culture. So that's my short answer for you. I could talk for another hour at least on the proper way to start this process. I've done it for 5 businesses in the last 10 years. A lot of times, a lot of times people hire me when they're not a professional manager. They had a really good idea for a tech company or something like that, and they bring me in because I've run tech companies before, sold a lot of them in the past, and they bring me in to kind of shake things up and start over with a better process. So if you want to schedule a call, I'm happy to chat with you, Julie, offline about some of the things that I know you're going to run into as challenges, so you can prepare for them. But shoot me an email, info@realvolve.com, Julie, and I'll reach back out to you. Doug's going to start the free trial. Thank you, Doug. Really appreciate you being here and appreciate the feedback. Fantastic perspectives. Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate that feedback. Can you recommend any videos or webinars that will teach me more about how to develop our workflows and templates? Lori, yes. Shoot us an email. Shoot us that question, or maybe John, write down Lori's name there. We'll reach out to you, Lori. Actually, I'll have somebody on our training team reach out, and they'll show you exactly where you need to go for ideas on workflows. So shoot us an email there at info@realvolve with your info. Renee says, love it, lots of great info. Thank you so much, Renee. I need help with workflows. I'm a reasonably new customer. Alf, same thing. Shoot us an email, info@realvolve.com. I will have someone reach out to you. We really are committed to your success. I promise we want you to be successful with Realvolve. It breaks our heart when we hear that people aren't using it to its full capacity, or if they struggle with it or they hit a roadblock of any kind. We want to absolutely help you with that. Alice says, I'm from Canada. Can listings be added automatically to Realvolve? Also need help with workflows. Yes, Alice, they can be. added automatically through IDX Broker. We have an integration. So we're working on other integrations to get more data from MLSs, but as you can imagine, it's expensive and time consuming. So bear with us. We are becoming better and better all the time with those integrations. So we're going to try our best. Rob, very helpful, learned a lot, need to reorganize and refocus. Awesome, looking forward to making a switch into Realvolve. Rob, let me know if you need any help. We really, really appreciate you. Let's see. Thank you, thank you. I'm a customer. What a powerhouse Realvolve is. I was with TP, top producer, from 1995 till Realvolve 18 months ago. Thank you so much, Linda. Lisa, we are becoming better and better RV users. Thank you so much, Lisa. I owe you an assignment, Lisa. I haven't forgotten about you. So I apologize for being late, but it's been a crazy couple of weeks, but I promise I have not forgotten about you. Thank you so much for joining us. Man, we're 20 minutes over and we still have a ton of people on the webinar. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any other questions? I have a few more minutes. If Julie's still around, I can still share some more things with you about how to start some of this stuff in your company. But by the way, I highly recommend reading a book called Scaling Up. It's a book by the Gazelles organization. It's by Harnish. Scaling Up. It's called the Rockefeller Habits 2.0. Read that book. Do you include any open house app? We do have an integration with Spacio, Gary. We do have some features here in Realvolve that can help with some feedback and things like that, but the only open house app that we integrate with directly is Spacio. Okay, Julie's still here. Any idea when the free resources might be sent? Yeah, over the next couple of days, Jennifer. Some of them are, I'm putting some finishing touches on them. They're brand new, but you'll start getting them today, and you'll get them today, tomorrow, and Thursday. So stay tuned for that. So Julie, what is your role in the organization, Julie? Are you the team leader? Does the team leader listen to you? Okay, an assistant being groomed into a team manager. Perfect. So, and by the way, it doesn't really matter what your role is. I just wanted to understand what it was, because change can be, anybody can be the catalyst for change in their organization, right? I don't care if you're brand new and you're an assistant and you're the lowest on the totem pole, or if you're the team leader, you can always affect change. So what I highly recommend is finding the people in the organization that you feel like you get along with pretty well, that can also have a little bit more pull than you do, or maybe they have as much pull as you do. And the first place to start is with culture. So I'm going to go to those slides. Bear with me one second. Matter of fact, I'm going to go to the very first slide, the first kind of topics. I'll zoom through this. So when we talked about these things here, purpose, core values, BHAG, brand promises, I want you to go to Google and Google OPSP. It's called a one-page strategic plan. OPSP. Oh, Lisa says, if we're doing a lot in RV and yet sometimes get glimpses of way better ways, how do we efficiently learn what we're missing without getting lost in the weeds? That's a great question, Lisa. I mean, the best thing I can tell you is if you feel like you're getting lost in the weeds, schedule some time with Mark Stepp. So we do trainings. It's pretty affordable for current customers, but we do one-on-one trainings where you can either give him assignments of things you want him to do, or you can bounce ideas off of him. If you just want to chat with him for 5 minutes, just, you can just reach out to him in an email or on Facebook, and he'll chat with you for 5 minutes. But if you want like an hour-long training, or you want us to help you build some workflows and make sure that it works the right way, the best way, we do have what we call our virtual assistant program, and it's Michael Shawley and Mark Stepp that run that program. They're the ones you're going to want to reach out to. So hopefully that answers your question, Lisa. Back to Julie. So OPSP, it's a one-page strategic plan. Download that. It's a PDF. And it goes into your purpose, your core values, your brand promises, those kinds of things. And start filling that out with the team. Ask the team for feedback. Start an email thread or a spreadsheet that says, hey, everybody, I'm putting together a document to help our culture, to help us all get in sync, to get on the same page with how we're dealing with customers, and start there. If you can get everybody to buy in and start contributing to a document like that, that is a awesome first step into starting to implement a lot of these lessons. Because if you can't get them to say, this is what we believe and we all have one unified goal, we have one unified purpose, then getting people to focus on process, getting people to change their mindset is just really difficult. You have to do things in order. The way our brains work is we first feel an emotion about something, which, well, we think about something first. We have a thought, right? So we have a thought about something, then it affects the way we feel about that thing, our emotions, and that our emotions affect the way we act about something. So if we want to change people's actions, we have to go backward to their thoughts and emotions first. It's all about their beliefs and their thoughts, the way they think about the world, the things they believe about the world, the values they have, which then affect emotions, which then affect behavior. So you have to start with the feelings and the emotions, and everybody needs to feel like they're unified in purpose, that they're all a part of a team, that they're all working towards something bigger and something better. So the PDF for download is called OPSP. If you just go to Google, Linda is asking about the download. Just go to Google and type in OPSP, and it's from the Gazelles organization, and you'll find it there. One-page strategic plan. Really, you need to read the book, the Scaling Up book, which explains how to fill out the OPSP. There's also some articles from Jim Collins that I highly recommend about culture. So if you Google articles by Jim Collins about culture and purpose, there's some really good stuff in there. But that's absolutely where I would start. That unifying everybody around a mission is going to immediately and drastically affect how much you're going to be able to get done as a team and your performance as a team. But I mean, a lot of these lessons that I shared today, let me go back to this first overview slide here. All of these things, it almost matches exactly how I try to approach a new team. If I'm assigned to go in and make a team more productive and more effective, this is how I look at it. I start thinking about the mindset of individuals. I say this person has a fixed mindset, meaning they're more focused on the clothes they wear or how much they sold 10 years ago, and they'll talk about things like that. I mean, they talk about the good old days or the one time they did, the one time they did 100 transactions in 1 year without anybody on their team, where, last year they didn't do that great. So they keep talking about 5 years ago when they killed it. That person has a fixed mindset. So we want to recognize those people with a fixed mindset and help them to think about things as a process of becoming rather than a state of being. And then think about culture. How does everybody get along? What are the values? Is there a unified purpose? If you asked everybody on the team, what's our purpose? What's our 10-year goal? Would anybody be able to say what it is? Would anybody be able to articulate what those things are? If you said, name 2 of our core values that we all share as a group, would people be able to list those things off? That's the first thing. And then you want to gather feedback both from the team itself about working with the team. So I would even ask the NPS question to those 25 team members. I would say, would you recommend this team to another agent? Would you recommend joining the team? And see what people say there. And then gather customer feedback about the team. If you can get feedback from past clients about the team, specifically past clients that worked with the team in the last 12 months, that worked with multiple people on the team. So if they worked with transaction coordinators and maybe a couple of different agents on the team, ask them what they thought of the team. Now you can take that information back to the rest of the team in a culture meeting, in a culture kickoff meeting and say, hey guys, this is what people think about us. This is what our team thinks about us anonymously, and this is what our customers think about us. After you've done that and you start to kind of knock off some of those, a rough draft of that culture document or the OPSP, the one-page strategic plan, now it's time to move more into the KPIs, start tracking your funnel and your churn a little bit differently, focus on what data is the most important data that you can use to improve your processes, and then schedule meetings to reevaluate the OPSP, reevaluate your culture, and then work on processes. And then do that daily huddle with everybody. I would do, break the team out into mini teams and do 2 huddles every day where you go around the circle and you say, do you need help? Do you need help? Do you need help? And if people can't all be in the same place, I highly recommend doing Skype. Now, a lot of people don't recommend doing that kind of thing, but we do Skype calls, and Skype has some awesome mobile apps where you don't have to be on video. You can just join via audio, and it's a really great way to get everybody on the same page. So it's super difficult to get everybody on the same page, but that daily huddle is one of the best ways I know how. So that's kind of where I would start. I hope that helps. If you have any more questions about that, Julie, just feel free to reach out to me if you haven't already. So we're an hour and a half in. Anybody else have any final questions for me about Realvolve or about the lessons that I covered today? Any others? Just some thank yous, but no questions. You are very welcome. Thanks for all the participation. I really appreciate it. It helps me out a ton. Also, would love suggestions on what you want us to cover next. It sounds like we could probably do another workflow, kind of a boot camp, which we've done in the past. But let me know if there's anything else. And Lisa, I'm doing this webinar again tomorrow, and I'm doing it again on Thursday for other groups. So let me know if you want to watch the webinar again. It's going to be a little different each time, but I'm doing it another 2 times this week. I told you it was popular. A lot of people wanted it. So we've just keep getting requests to do this content over and over again. Boot camp for workflows. There's a couple of votes for boot camp. All right, we'll get something on the schedule, so stay tuned. We'll get something on the schedule for the next couple of weeks to do a nice little boot camp. By the way, if anybody wants to share any of their knowledge on Realvolve, we're also starting a new webinar series where we just tell a couple of stories from one customer at a time. We're doing a couple of those webinars every month now, so stay tuned for the first of its kind. Kendall Young's going to be helping us with those. So those will be fun. Stay tuned, and if you want to participate, let us know. If you want to be a co-host on one of those webinars, let us know, because we're looking for people right now. All right, well, looks like it's just a bunch of thank yous. So I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna wrap it up. Thank you so much, everybody. Again, I can't say enough how grateful I am for you as customers, for how grateful I am for what you contribute to our community. We absolutely love working with all of you. We love the real estate industry, and we love agents that are focused on process. It just makes it a joy to come to work every day when we get to correspond with folks like you, good folks like you on Facebook and via email and on the phone and in person when we actually get out. So thanks again for attending. Go fill out that form that John shared there in the chat section, and we'll send you some resources over the next couple of days. Hope to hear from all of you very soon. Bye-bye for now.